Hi everybody and welcome back to the shop. So today we have a massive Banggood haul. There's a lot of products to go through. This is basically a first look. They're most popular items in the woodworking and hand tool category. At the end of the video I will showcase some of these products and show how they work. I'm going to move pretty quickly and let's just show you what I got. Now this first item is something I did want. It's basically a 45-degree chamfering tool. Now this is one item that I will tell you right away is absolute garbage, at least so far. When you look at the picture, and I didn't read the ad carefully enough, I thought this was billet aluminum, so I figured this is going to be good solid construction that would be very precise and reliable. It's not. It's die-cast steel. Hear that little rattling? That's the blade. That's not good. My normal go-to tool is one of these little tiny hand planes. This thing has been my favorite tool for making quick chamfers. The idea of using this is then you can have very precise 45 degrees, which I get pretty close with this, but I think I'm going to stick with this at least so far. What I've seen someone else do or heard someone talk about is you can sharpen this blade, and I'm going to try that. We'll see if it can redeem itself a little bit, but I'm not hopeful. And what we have here is basically a 24-inch T-square, billet aluminum. Very good construction. It's in metric. Generally, I'm not using this to measure. This is just for me to draw straight lines. It's got all these holes in here so you can put a pen or a very fine pencil and then draw a line across the wood. Make a perfect, precise line. You have to make sure you're pushing both sides at the same time because the slightest little bit of rocking and now your line is no longer precise. It's just a T-square. I'm going to draw lines with it. It's perfect. Okay, let's go right to this one. As if I didn't have enough center finders, I've got another one. With all the rounded corners, you can put this in your pocket, not have sharp edge poking you. And it's good for a block of wood that, 3.5-inch square. And there you go. You've got your center finder. Works just fine. Then just stick it right in the pocket. Good to go. This one is specifically called a line ruler. It's very flimsy. Push and draw, it's going to be very hard to draw a straight line with this thing. And this is something pretty rare in Banggood. Most products you're not going to get cases. You barely get cardboard boxes at that. Okay, now this I'm not going to assemble. This is one of those alignment tools for mounting handles or drilling the holes for handles or knobs in cabinetry, and allow you to do it precisely and have repeatability. I do have an upcoming project where I'm definitely going to put this to the test, so I'm not even going to showcase how this is used later on in this video. Save this for that video. What do we got? Well, we'll go right to the suitcase, the mysterious suitcase here. Router bits, what a shock. Now, I'm not too confident these are going to be very good. Some of these products I might need to utilize these to do a test or make a jig. So I'm going to do my best to try to use these exclusively. So we'll see if they're really any good. I see a lot of them don't have bearings on them. So that's always kind of a sign of maybe not the best quality. Because if you use a bit that doesn't have a bearing, oftentimes you're going to get burning. I don't see any specialty bits in here. And that's something I would have liked to have seen. Okay, what we got here? Oh, your basic hold down clamp. Now this is not just basic. This is specifically meant for like T-track or T-slots in wood. MFT table. Micro jig has a whole system. Cut, slots in the wood. And there's many uses for this. Onto the little boxes here. Now this is something I think should be essential for every woodworker, even metal worker, is your right angle squares. This is a measuring device. It's a clamping device. It's even can be considered a jig. Screw it down and now you've got a perfect right angle quickly. And oh yeah, one bonus is that imperial measurements, and you have your metric. So not only, like I said, a measuring device, you could use this as a height gauge. You could use this for squaring up your table saw, your band saw, your miter saw, even the fence on your joiner. This product line here is Hongdui, a very high-end brand in China. If it's not cheap in China, then it's probably good quality. Glue scraper using a carbide cutter. And on the side here, it keeps an extra bit nice and handy. Carbide is pretty darn sharp. Be very careful that when you're scraping, you don't gouge the wood. Slight little slip or a little too much pressure and you're putting gouges in. Okay, and keeping along lines of right angle. This is a 6-inch. Normally these right angle come in 4-inch. Now this one's a kit that is specifically meant for what I was saying earlier about being a clamping device. Put this on the outside, or I imagine you could put this on the inside of a box. Put this here, you put this here, and there you have it. Clamp it in your piece of wood, and then now you can hold it at a perfect 45 degrees. Imperial, and you've got metric. Okay, the boxes are getting smaller, so we're down to the last two. This, I'm not sure how to use it. I believe they would refer to this as a kerf tool. 2 different gaps for like cutting dados. I'm definitely gonna figure out how to use it so I can show you. We can both determine if it looks like it's gonna be a good tool. This is a very popular item on their site. I have noticed that. And I think we're at the last item. What do we got here? Oh, and here you go, your standard hold down clamp. Now this one doesn't use a T-track. This one's actually using a miter slot, so that's a much wider one. You have to keep that in mind. And that's one thing I've noticed with Banggood. Whenever you order what looks like T-track, you be very careful because it's all miter track, which is much wider, so that can be kind of an issue. Okay, I think that's it. So now I'm gonna reset and we'll put some little demos together. Okay, so here's the first tool. It's a 45-degree chamfer plane. Now, as I mentioned, it looks good, but it's not. It's very poor construction. Now, I'm going to see if I can make a little modification to keep this from rattling and tighten up the blade, and then it might actually be usable. The other thing I'm going to do, too, is attempt to maybe sharpen the blade itself or just clean up a little bit, see if it cuts better. But I'll go ahead and do a test without doing anything first, and then we'll come back after and do a new test, see if it's improved. Okay, well that only sort of worked. I did try to take off too big of a chunk, but I just wanted to see how it would perform in whatever situation I put it in. And I can even feel that the blade has even got a little bit of a fold over. So let's clean up the blade and we'll try this again and see if there's any improvement. Well, I was just taking it apart. One thing I noticed is the little knurled nut here. I was going to take it off so I can sharpen this a little easier. And I noticed that they flatten the threads a little bit. Now I understand why they did it, so that way you won't back this out too far. However, I'm realizing very quickly that looseness, well, there is already a washer in here, and if we add more washers, we should be able to take that rattle out. But of course I can't get the knurled nut off, so I'll have to see if I have a tap and die or a die and clean up those threads so we can put a new washer on it. Okay, I went ahead, I took the blade out. I did my best to clean up the edge, flatten it a little bit, do a little bit of sharpening. I even stropped it a little bit. And one thing that I did in here is there was a really tiny washer. I didn't have the exact thickness that would have been perfect, but it's a little bit better now, hardly any rattling. I just put a different size washer in there, a thicker one, and it took up a lot of the slack. So let's see if it works any better. Okay, well, it did work better. Now, one thing I did notice when I was cleaning up the blade, I don't think the edge is perfectly, 90 degrees or square. So I might revisit the sharpening of it, but that did help a lot. And putting that washer in, I think, helped give it some stability. But being that this is some super soft pine, it should have performed a lot better, even with a bad blade. So I'm not real confident this is going to have use for anything other than soft wood. So we'll have to do some more research on that, and we'll revisit this at a later time. Okay, the final product in this lineup will be these kerf maker, or I don't know if you'd call it a kerf maker tool, but it's a kerfing tool. What it allows you to do is make dados, accurately by incorporating the thickness of the blade. Since making a dado is not such a big deal, I mean, you could just draw your 2 lines for your spacing, but what this will allow you to do is first compensate for the kerf of the blade, and then measure out the precise thickness of the material that you're going to cut a dado for. So then that way, by using this, you won't have to do a lot of cleanup at the end. You'll basically cut the exact width you need with a single blade. This doesn't require a dado stack in order to get an accurate dado. So let's go to the table saw and I'll show you how to set it up. There's a couple things we can do to help give us optimal results. And if the first one's pretty much a no-brainer, it's we need to make sure the blade is square to the table. That way we know our walls of our dado are square as well. The second one is an optional. The second is optional, and we want to get ourselves a flat top grind blade. And I do happen to have one already that I use when I do box joints. So I'm going to put this in the table, get the blade squared, and then we'll come back and start using this thing. We have the kerf. Now it's time to get the width of the dado. And that's the other major benefit of this tool, is it will create a perfectly measured dado. You take the material you're cutting the dado for, put this part over it, close it, tighten, there we go. Now this becomes your stop block, if you will. You have 2 different positions, so we'll put the wood in here, line this up one way where you're resting against the smaller part, and then you flip it over and the longer part. And then that way you now have established in left and right. And now for the moment of truth. Look at that. So there you have it. I mean, you couldn't ask for more. Look at that. Beautiful. And there you have it. So my final opinions on this, My final opinion on this is not that it's a gimmick. However, I don't think you would use this in every instance of needing to make a dado. Since if say you were going to make like a bookcase and you wanted the shelves to have dados, well, if you had 4 shelves, that's potentially 8 dados. Well, I think on projects like that, this would not work very well for you. This might be a little bit more cumbersome, and if you're doing a long board, there's just nowhere to put this. So I think this is really good for if you're just going to do 1 or maybe 2, like in the instance of making a dado for a T-track. This would be perfect because you're just going to make that 1 dado for 1 track or maybe 2. Then this would be worth taking out. Other than that, I don't see you using this very much. Doesn't mean this is a bad tool. This is an awesome tool. You saw the accuracy it can achieve is perfect. So with that being said, this is definitely a tool worth having in your box. Plus it could just fit in your pocket. So when you want to do that quick dado, because I know the other issue people will have is that, well, just get yourself a dado stack. Well, I understand that many people either aren't allowed to have dados depending on your country, Or maybe your saw is, so a lot of older saws do not even support a dado stack. So, and I myself don't even have one yet I would like one. And in many cases, then you would use a router and just make some kind of a guide. And I believe there is a way you could even use this to set up on longer boards using other boards to clamp. Like maybe you could create a couple blocks of different sizes, but that's just so much extra work. Rather than just using this, do the couple little dados or go in the old-fashioned route, and which just takes a little bit more finessing. So now with all of these tools that I have showcased, there's many more that you saw in the unboxing. You're going to see those again in some of my other videos, and if any of my opinions change, I will let you guys know. So until next time, you take care.